It is Thursday, Parshas Emor, Yid Gimel Iyah Tufshin Pai Vuv, and it's April 30, 2026. Lemespura. My name is Gershy Schwarcz, and I am pleased to welcome you all on Edge with some breaking news.
Your daily report of the news of the last 24 hours, powered by Yiddish24, provided to you by The Click.
Hayom shmoinu ve'esrim yom shahaim arbu'u sheviyos lu'omer malchus shebenetzach. Trump will receive a top-secret plan about the future of America's operation, might I call it, due to legal reasons, not war, with Iran. He might have to change the name. Like I said, due to legal reasons. Israel-Lebanon ceasefire is almost, non-existent. And an old Torah scroll was found in Turkey. I guess Turkey made it back into the news again, and this time not for anything scary, only for scientific findings, like Noach's Taiva, for those of you who remember already, for those of you listening on Edge, watching on Edge. And is it real or fake? Find out more on Edge, but first, we have to address the elephant in the room. I know that you have a business. Either you run Amazon, or you run a retail store, or maybe you just have a gavai of a shul, and you're trying on your own to design a program which obviously we all know doesn't work because you tried with ChatGPT or Claude. You're a genius, I know, but you're spending your valuable time at what you're good at. You can be a doctor, you can be a scientist, you can be an accountant, a lawyer. Why are you busy doing things that is not your job, that is not under your title? Give it to the professionals. Protobyte 347-354-1237. They code, they engineer, they get you something valuable and something that actually operates and actually works. Understand? All right, 347-354-1237. My friends, we have an update on the Golders Green stabbing attack. Very sad news, by the way. The attack on our Yiddish brothers that we told you about yesterday. The suspect, his name is Essa Suleiman, a British national, born in Somalia. That's why Trump hates Somalia. 45 years old. And here is what we know about this man. According to the Telegraph, and this is exclusive reporting, he was jailed back in 2008, sentenced to 9 years in prison. You know what for? He stabbed a police officer and his dog. It's not a man who slipped through the cracks. This is a man with a history of serious violent attacks going back nearly 20 years. It gets worse. Back in 2020, 6 years ago, he was referred to something called the PREVENT program. That's a British program specifically designed to catch people before they become terrorists. He was flagged and he was on their radar. And still, 2 Jewish men sadly got stabbed by his kitchen knife in Golders Green yesterday. What a sad story. London's top police chief, Mark Rowley, Ari Pfeffer will maybe tell me how to pronounce his names, I don't know, says the suspect, or maybe Gavriel asked, the one we interviewed yesterday. So the London top police chief, Mark Rowley, says the suspect has and I'm quoting here his words, history of serious violence and mental health issues. That same day before the stabbing, he got into a physical fight with someone in South London. And the Met confirmed, the Metropolitan Police, it was the same individual. They say he arrived at someone's home armed with a kitchen knife, and he had a fight with that occupant and then left. The person, thank God, walked away with minor injuries. Police arrived within 6 minutes, but he was gone. Now, our brothers were not so lucky, obviously. And for where Suleiman is now after his arrest, he was taken to hospital, obviously, because he was, kicked in the head a few times by police officers, as we'll see soon from the body cam footage. He has since been discharged and is currently in custody at a London police station. Police have now released body cam video showing the moment they arrested this man. And yes, this has officially been declared a terrorist attack, not just a stabbing, a terror attack in the heart of Golders Green, one of the most recognizable Jewish neighborhoods in the entire world. Now we've received a personal message, and this one we want to share with every single one of you, our viewers. And German mit Numen Shlomi Feldman left me a message telling me that he is a relative of the younger victim, a 34-year-old Yid, and he wanted us, our viewers, to know that Baruch Hashem, the young man, is doing much better. Obviously, he went through a traumatic experience, and he had an injury to his lung from the stabbing, but he's expected, obviously, to come home very soon from the hospital, very soon. We are also relieved, we say it with full hearts, that he may have a full, speedy Refi Shalayma. And, yes, now, the older victim, obviously, the elderly one, who was attacked while putting on his couple next to the bus stop there, outside Kosher Kingdom, not far from Kosher Kingdom, by the way. He needs Yutfilis. We do not yet know exactly what happened to him. We're working on getting more information, how he's doing. All we know, he's an elderly Jew, in his 80s somewhere, 70s, 80s, I think, 74-year-old, I think. He needs your tefillas. Now, let us step back for one moment, because this attack did not happen in a vacuum. Britain today is a very different place than it was 50 years ago. I remember, again, I don't remember 50 years ago, but I remember 20 years ago, when I lived there, more than half, 51% of people in the United Kingdom say they have no religion at all. Only 9% say they believe in anything. And among young people, aged 16 to 34, only 2.6%. A generation that has completely walked away from God, from values, and from any sense of the right and wrong. Now, at the same time, extreme Islam has been spreading very fast. At least 15% of London is now Muslim. A poll from 2016 found very disturbing views among some of those people. And for years, gangs were abusing minors across Britain, across British cities, right out in the open. And the people in charge did nothing. You know why? Because they were afraid. Afraid of being called racists. Afraid of the trouble it would cause. And Jewish communities paid a heavy price for that fear. That's not a news story, by the way. When a society loses its fear of heaven, of Hashem, when it loses faith in Hashem, when it becomes too frightened to stand up for what's right, it is always the Yid who suffers first. It's not a theory. That's our history. From Mitzrayim, Bovel, to Europe, we know the story. Community leaders across Britain are now demanding, including the chief rabbi, that the government act. They want real protection, not just speeches, not press releases, not visits, real action. Not STARMER v'oiser, oimer v'oiser. Because attacks like these are becoming regular news, sadly. Shuls are becoming targets. Our people, groceries, businesses are frightened. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer himself came to Golders Green. He visited the scene of the attack, and when he got there, people shouted out to him, and they booed him, and they called him a traitor, and they screamed with posters, "Keir Starmer is a Jew, HARMER." They said that the government has failed to protect the Jewish lives, and honestly, many in our community feel exactly the same way. But we can tell you this: after the visit, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, and the Metropolitan Commissioner Mark Rowley, who we mentioned before, sat down together with Hatzalah volunteers and Shomrim volunteers. I think Gavril Ost was also there, I think, in the picture, if I'm not mistaken. Face to face, they heard from the people on the ground who actually protect our communities. Shomrim are not afraid to face when they have to face these criminals, these terrorists. We saw yesterday the footage, and we saw today as well, actually, how the police approached the terrorist. Obviously, thanks to their courage to walk up to them, they were afraid of him. But our Shomrim members aren't afraid. They just walked up and they learnt it. They're training themselves. And I heard now, my sister told me that in Britain they're training now in a widespread, all the whole Jewish community to do self-defense and many other things. And we know that there's strict gun laws in England, so nobody has guns, obviously. You know, the typical, the funny British story. It's a funny, sad story, though. But when the British police arrive to a terrorist scene, they say, "Hold on, terrorist, 1 second. Let me just get my gun from my car, which is locked and loaded in some... not loaded. It's locked inside the glove compartment." Anyway, the point is like this. It's sad. Face to face, they heard from the people on the ground who actually protect our communities, these police officers, and they saw how serious they are, how serious Hatzalah, how serious the Shomrim volunteers of Golders Green and of the rest of London are. Starmer called the attack appalling. He promised more police patrols. He promised stronger action against anti-Semitism. And according to one local newspaper, the government has committed £25 million towards security for Jewish communities across Britain. Okay? Listen, at least something, at least something. But again, now they're doing it, and when it quietens down, they forget about us. But we don't have to rely and trust them. This is Hashem. We trust in Hashem. We believe in Hashem. It's good times. My English brothers and sisters, strengthen yourself. Be proud of who you are. Be proud to be Jewish. £25 million, we will take it, but we will be watching because our brothers deserve way more than promises, especially the ones lying in hospital right now. In the meantime, as reported by European Jewish News and Ari Pfefferkorn, thanks to them I got the pictures and videos, There was a massive fire in 86 Kazenrov Masifti Yeshiva this morning in London. Well, just now, a few minutes ago. I'm not sure what caused the fire yet. There's no details. I tried finding out from European Jewish News Channel on WhatsApp, and also I tried finding out from Ari Fevkon, but they're too busy. Ari is obviously busy now preparing for the massive Jewish expo that's going to happen. But we're going to ask him about it, Mitzvah. But Baruch Hashem, London fire arrived fast with the help of Atzula. They managed to save the situation, although much details hasn't been released yet, like I said. But we did see Sifra Torah being rescued from the Hakol Bakol from 86 Kazenrov, the Yeshiva, Masifti Yeshiva. Anyway, may Hashem bench and protect every single Yid across Europe and across the whole Welt, the ganze Welt, and maybe only here Basilas Tovus. All right, let's talk about Iran. All right, so today, a big day for Trump, and here is why, okay? A top secret envelope will be delivered to him during today's military briefing. Since it's a secret, we will not know the secret, the contents of the secret, but we can speculate, I guess, according to reports and according to news sources, what the plan contains. I think it's about the attacks on Iran, basically. This may include a short wave of airstrikes, a partial U.S. takeover of the Strait of Hormuz, using ground forces, a special forces mission to get Iran's highly enriched uranium, and possible use of Dark Eagle missiles in combat. Listen to this. Each Dark Eagle missile costs about $15 million, $15 million. So we know it's also a million times more powerful than ordinary missiles. Let me paint a picture for you, okay? Ordinary missiles can only reach a short range, but the Dark Eagle can travel 3,500 miles in just 15 to 20 minutes. This means you can fire it from a safe space far from Iran, and they would not know it's coming for them. It also cannot be easily detected because it has a boost glide capability. This allows it to fly across the atmosphere to become invisible to Iran's air defense systems, which they don't even have. Trump's top secret meeting will be held with the United States Central Command, commonly known as CENTCOM, like I always say here. Aside from Trump, Commander Admiral Brad Cooper and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane will also be there. Pete Hexeth, where are you? If you recall, Cooper gave Trump a similar briefing on February 26, 2 days before Shabbat Zucher, before the US and Israel launched the current operation right now, which is on hold or not, I don't know. That briefing helped drive Trump's decision to enter the conflict. Now let's hope this new briefing will be beneficial to the people instead. I heard from Ben Shapiro, him answering some questions about what he hopes and what the real thing what should happen really. When I spoke to Machava Moshe from Jackson on Spin the Edge on Sunday, we had this discussion as well, and part of the conversation was whether America would go back into war or not with Iran, whether it would go full force or not. Now, what's supposed to really happen is surgical strikes, and they should continue because Iranian regime, according to a lot of reports, cannot be trusted. A deal won't be made. They're obviously rebuilding their stockpile. They're getting more and more aggressive. As you can see, these attacks happening across the world. They're sleeper cells. They're not stopping. Trump said that the most effective strategy was blocking Iran's ship route, specifically through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. He believes it's more effective than the attacks because it is choking Iran like a stuffed pig, he said. On top of this, US strikes have already destroyed about 80% of Iran's missile production factories. We previously reported that Trump said no thank you to Iran's latest deal proposal, like Abbas Araghchi has sent him, right? Now he told them to just surrender. Just say it. We give up, and then you'll be fine. Unbelievable. He's changing his strategy fast. Sure, he is still open to nuclear talks, but he is no longer sending his people. He's no longer sending his people now to talk to them, basically have a conversation. Instead, these are now happening by phone or on social media. The naval blockade is now the third in a month. Here is our latest count. 42 commercial ships tried to breach the blockade and pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Take note of the word try because they didn't succeed, obviously. So 69 million barrels of Iranian oil are still stranded and cannot get out of the country. Iran has started filling filling oil tankers with crude oil because storage inside the country is running out, obviously. The Iranian rial has fallen sharply, Trump said. Their money is valueless. In Tehran, Iran's parliamentary speaker accused Washington of trying to accuse an economic collapse inside Iran. Well, that's the point, isn't it, right? Okay, the US military campaign against Iran has cost about $25 billion over the past 2 months. Jules Hurst, who's an America's financial decision maker at the Pentagon, gave that number to the House Armed Services Committee. It is the first official costing report since the war began. On the higher end, the expenses from the war could reach $40 to $50 billion. Secretary of War Pete Hexeth defended the additional budget proposal, obviously before Congress yesterday for nearly 6 hours. However, when asked when the war will end, he didn't give a date, obviously. The USS Gerald R. Ford is finally heading home after 300 days at sea. It is the world's largest aircraft carrier. It was an important ingredient to the Iran campaign and in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Now it needs repairs. It will soon leave the Middle East and return to Virginia by mid-May. But don't worry, 3 other carrier strike groups still remain active in the area. U.S. embassies have been told to deliver 4 messages to partner governments by May 1st. These messages will be about joining a new group to keep shipping moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, even if it's blocked at the moment. Some countries are not included in the invitation, though. These are Russia, China, Belarus, Cuba, and other nations that are not friends with the U.S. The U.S. State Department told Congress that Palestine paid $156 million to terrorists and their relatives in 2025 for what? For committing terror and killing people. It claimed that the payments continued despite Palestine's promise that it had already stopped it. Because of that, the U.S. does not want to help it anymore. And when I say Palestine, I'm talking about, obviously, the West Bank PA Authority. Now, however, the money and Gaza. The money is now... They won elections recently, so yeah. You know that, right? You heard the news, right? However, the money is now moving through restructured programs or programs that have new names. Jerome Powell announced that he will remain on the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors, even after his term as chair ends May 15th. This will keep him at the agency until January 2028. Interesting. How can he do that? Powell said he will stay for an unknown period but won't be seen in public. He said he doesn't want to be in the way of the new chairman, obviously. He said when Kevin Warsh is confirmed and sworn in, he will be that chair. In other words, he won't be in his way. But this announcement is rare because the last Fed chair to stay as a governor after leaving the top job was Marina Eccles. His name is, or who, or whatever, whose chair term ended in 1948. Obviously, I don't know how to pronounce his name because it's been long ago. And I didn't study this history part, but yeah, just giving you the news, the sources, the way it says, the way it's told to me. Powell said he is staying here because he's staying as governor, well, as one of the governing members of the Federal Reserve because of legal fights involving the Fed, which could threaten its independence. Trump responded by saying Powell wants to stay because he can't get a job anywhere else. And as we reported yesterday, former FBI Director James Comey was arrested after posting a photo on Instagram. Do you remember the picture? I said yesterday about it. It says the numbers, he put up the numbers in Seychelles, 8647. Prosecutors say 86 is a slang for get rid of and, basically 8 miles away and 6 feet under. That's basically what Trump also said. And 47 refers to President Donald J. Trump, who's the 47th president. In other words, they say it was a call to kill him. Comey said he had no idea what the numbers meant. An FBI director, really? And called the whole thing politically motivated, obviously. Well, yesterday, Comey surrendered to authorities to face those charges. He was released after turning himself in. His lawyers already saying they will challenge the charges and call the prosecution vindictive. And this one is far from over, obviously, as you can imagine. The United States will start giving back money from Trump tariffs or taxes around May 11. These tariffs were ruled illegally, according to the judge that ruled so by the Supreme Court. Because of this, the government must return the money to the companies that paid them. About $166 billion could be refunded to many importers. Some payments are already being processed, but the full results are still ongoing. The government is checking if it can take away a special protection that lets immigrants stay in the United States. That protection exists for people from countries where it's too dangerous for them to go back home, like Syria and Haiti. The court's conservative judges agree that the U.S. has the right to remove those protections. However, Justice Sonia Sotomayor disagreed and said that the Department of Homeland Security may have treated Haitian immigrants unfairly because of who they are. And a quick update, we mentioned yesterday that a tug of war inside the House of Representatives over the budget, well, it resolved overnight. What happened? House Republicans narrowly passed a budget framework 215 to 211, strictly along party lines. This clears an early step toward unlocking roughly $70 billion in new funding for ICE and Border Patrol. And they can do it through a process called reconciliation, which means they don't need Democratic support at all. Now, this does not mean the money is being spent yet. There are still more votes needed in both the House and the Senate, obviously, before anything actually becomes the law. But the first hurdle has been cleared. The U.S. Justice Department has brought criminal charges against a Mexican governor for the first time. The governor, his name is Sinaloa Governor Ruben Rocha Moya. Okay. He and 9 other current and former Mexican officials are being accused of drug trafficking and weapons offenses. They're going hard on this. U.S. lawmakers say they worked with this cartel leaders to bring large amounts of illegal drugs into the United States. Israel's ceasefire with Lebanon is close to breaking down. Israel's IDF chief said that this week that there is no ceasefire in southern Lebanon. This is especially true since Israeli soldiers push deeper into Hezbollah areas. A Hezbollah drone was seen over southern Lebanon today, and an Israeli missile quickly intercepted it. Sirens were sounded across the border community of Metula during the incident. Thankfully, the military says the drone did not cross into Israeli territory. It did hit a car, they say. So far, the IDF says it killed 130 fighters and destroyed a major tunnel network, like I reported yesterday. Israeli forces also destroyed a rocket launcher hidden inside a civilian building, struck a Hezbollah terrorist fleeing on a motorcycle, and blew up 2 sites in the Nakwara area. President Trump has urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to keep military action limited, surgical strikes only. He told him, you've got to do it more surgically, meaning military actions should be limited to what is only necessary. No large wounds are needed. For example, they shouldn't knock out buildings. It is too terrible and makes Israel look bad, he said. Netanyahu is now asking Trump to set a 2 to 3 week deadline for Lebanon talks. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also held talks with Israelis and Lebanese ambassadors, but there hasn't been any breakthrough still. Trump's officials deny the ceasefire is collapsing, obviously. On Wednesday, Israeli forces stopped a group of boats going to Gaza, the flotilla. This happened in international waters near Crete, far from Gaza. The boats were part of a large group called a flotilla, in inspiration of, as you all know, Greta Thunberg. It had about 100 boats and around 1,000 activists from different countries. Israeli officers went onto the boats and told the people to move to the front. Reports aren't clear about how many boats were taken. Some say 7, some say 12. The people on the boat said they wanted to bring food, medicine, and health workers to Gaza, but Israel found other things, drugs, and basically nothing else. Inside Gaza, Israel now controls about 2/3 of the area. New maps show a bigger area under Israeli control. There are also special zones where people cannot even go. This area is about 11% of Gaza, after the yellow line. Israeli officials said that no foreign forces can enter Gaza now. They said this will not change until Hamas is removed and a new government is in place. On Wednesday evening, a soldier took out a weapon to threaten protesters, Haredi protesters, who blocked the main road in Yerushalayim. The protesters, which are mainly from the Peleg Yerushalmi group, were angry about the recent arrests, like I reported here yesterday, of yeshiva bochurim, especially one that was arrested and given 20 days in jail because he didn't want to join the army. Regarding the benefits of joining the army, Israel's Attorney General threatened a new rule. She said some religious schools, meaning yeshivas, will lose tax benefits if they don't join. So basically these yeshivas may lose money if their students avoid military service. Unbelievable. Vladimir Putin called Trump yesterday and offered his help to help Iran and the US with their peace talks. However, Trump, as you know, turned him down and told him, Putin, stick to your own thing. During the call, he told Putin to focus instead of ending the war in Ukraine. It might be easy because Trump says Ukraine has been militarily defeated. Interesting words to hear from our leader. Both Trump and Putin agreed to that, obviously, that Ukraine is just making the fight last longer for no reason. Well, there's some truth to that. The US may reduce its soldiers in Germany. This comes after Trump said that he may cut the number of troops there who are stationed in Germany right now. He wrote online that the US is checking the plan now and that a decision will come soon. This news comes a few days after Germany's leader Friedrich Merz spoke, and he said that the Trump administration looked weak in talks with Iran. Trump obviously got very angry and shot back at him and said that Germany is weak and all the other things that you can imagine already for yourself what he wrote in Truth Social. More than 500 police officers raided a gated religious compound in Crewe, I think it's pronounced Crewe, in England. Police arrested members of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, which is an Islamic sect that basically comes from the Shia Islam. They were accused of human trafficking and other terrible sins, I would say, and modern-day slavery. 9 people were arrested, including 6 men and 3 women. The group has a charity status in the UK. About 150 people live on the gated property, including 56 children. They're cracking down on that finally, huh? A 155-page interim report on Australia's Bondi Beach massacre was just released. This is considered the deadliest terrorist attack in the country on Jews. And now, new information shows it could have been prevented altogether. The report said that Sydney's Jewish community told police there was a high threat of an attack at the event. However, the event still did not get enough police protection. As a result, 15 people were killed. 15 Kedoshim, Hashem Yimkum Dumam, at December's Hanukkah party by the Sea Festival at Bondi Beach, where Reb Eli Schlanger, Hashem Yimkum Dumam, and many other members of the Chabad community there were killed in cold blood just because they're Jews. Instead of putting officers at the Hanukkah celebration to protect, police relied on mobile patrols to check it. To basically check in on them. The interim report has now 14 recommendations, including stronger firearm rules, better police coordination at Jewish events, stronger risk assessments, and more focus on counterterrorism. The mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, made a strong statement about the Armenian genocide from 111 years ago. Interesting. He said many Armenians were killed during the Ottoman rule. He didn't stop there and accused Azerbaijan and Turkey of genocide in the Karabakh region. This statement caused a reaction from Jewish leaders in Azerbaijan. Rabbi Zamir, a chief rabbi in Bekau, disagreed with him. He said Mamdani should not use the word genocide for Azerbaijan. Karabakh is now officially part of Azerbaijan. In addition, Armenia and Azerbaijan now have peace, according to this rabbi. So he's basically quoting something from 111 years ago that might have changed. I don't understand what the whole deal about this news is, but it was in my segment today, so I reported it. A man's fast driving and quick... I don't mean to be ignorant. It's just interesting that Mamdani just brought it up now. Like, why is he bringing it up? A man's fast driving and quick thinking helped him save a child's life today. His name is Moshe Feldman. He is not my Chava Moshe from Jack. He's my friend Moshe from Tom's Reveren. He was on his way to work when he spotted a child choking a girl on the side of the road. He didn't hesitate and stopped and helped right away. A CCTV video shows him rushing to the child and flipping her over to stop the choking, to stop the blockage. After a few tries, Baruch Hashem, Moshe was able, with Hashem's help, to clear the child's airway. Mamash nissim. But Moshe is a hero. He saw this, he didn't think twice, he acted and ran out to save this child. So I have to give him a shout out. Moshe, b'stat tzadik, Moshe. Kein Yirbi, just like you. Turkish police celebrated after finding an ancient Jewish Torah scroll. Here's the thing. The Turkish feel good now recently. There's a lot of interesting things happening in Turkey. First of all, we'll talk about Turkey with the fact that they're being a little bit skeptical about Bechlal, the whole idea of the Jews. But now they're starting to give us like scientific facts and findings. But experts say it was fake. Police say they took a very old Jewish manuscript from a foreign antique dealer who tried to illegally take it out of the country. And they say they found it. They described it as a 2-meter long something parchment paper. It also held gold Hebrew letters. Because of this, they thought it had great value. Turkish media covered the story widely, and some people accused Israel, obviously, of trying to steal it. But Professor James Davila, a specialist in ancient Jewish manuscripts, said that the police were basically fooled. First of all, we all know that gold isn't kosher, so you can't write Torah with golden oisius. It doesn't work like that. The golden oisius are the actual gold, the real gold, not the gold that you see physically. He said the manuscript is a fake copy and that the letters are not Hebrew. That's another thing. He said similar fakes are a part of an international fraud network aimed at antique collectors. All right, my friends, before we finish, let me just thank YS Capital Group for being a loyal supporter and a loyal sponsor on Edge. Like many of you could also do the same thing. Now, I want to remind you all that On Edge is really widely viewed and seen and heard on the Jewish kosher networks like Yiddish24 and Kol Mevaser. That's mainly where my segment goes on to and is published on. YouTube is just an addition. I haven't yet widespread publicized it, but it would be nice to get the same numbers at least to match the 40,000 people that watch me on the other platforms in Yiddish. If you want to listen to me in Yiddish, that's where I am every single day. But here in English, please spread the word. Subscribe to my channel right over here. And, spread the news, because On Edge News is here for you to give you every single story available on planet Earth. Check. Whenever I can, obviously. All right. And let's not forget Arrive Express, also, for being a loyal sponsor, Arrive Express. Okay, you know the numbers already. Because if you've been a long-time listener of On Edge, you already know who I'm talking about and why I'm talking about them. Have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see each other at Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.
Your daily report of the news of the last 24 hours, powered by Yiddish24, provided to you by The Click.